and welcome to our live Lunch and Learn webinar today with our special guest, the Amazon best-selling author, CEO and founder of the multi-award winning property investment company, Reventon, Mr. Chris Christofi. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure doing this with you, Timbo.
That's all right. How are you today?
Very good, very good. It's a beautiful, beautiful weather in Melbourne, which we don't get all the time. So very happy to be on this.
Beautiful sunny day for the cup and then thunderstorm by night. So typical Melbourne day.
If you don't like the weather, my friend used to tell me, just wait 10 minutes and it's definitely going to change.
Exactly. Now, for those who don't already know, I've been lucky enough to have worked with Chris for about 8 years at Reventon. So not only have I been lucky enough to follow his journey, but also, put into actions a lot of the teachings that he has put into his book, Your Path to Wealth, Brick by Brick. So everybody who turns up today is obviously getting a free copy of that book, Chris. So we thank you for that. I must admit, it's one of those books I found very easy to read, but I've personally put a lot of the teachings from that book into my own property investment portfolio. And I'm a true believer that what you've put into that will help a lot of people. So I appreciate you sharing that with our audience.
Definitely. Thanks.
For a lot of people who maybe don't know your story, obviously you've been in real estate for over 20 years. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate? And I suppose, where did Reventon come from?
Well, almost 25 years ago now, I think, I've always had a passion for real estate, and I was 19 years old, and my father gave my three older siblings a wedding present, which was a deposit for a home. Now, I was young, single, and I said to my dad, with inflation going up and everything, eating at that money, I said, Dad, can I have my money early, Dad? He goes, why? I said, I want to buy a car. He said, no. Find a piece of real estate, Chris, and I'll give you that money early, which was $30,000 back in the day. I did a lot of research. I fell absolutely in love with the property industry, and I bought my first piece of real estate for $183,400, a 3-bedroom townhouse in Tweed, which I sold a few years later for a substantial gain and made 480% return on my initial deposit. I fell absolutely in love with the property market, the property industry, and I just duplicated a process, which I bought 2, 3, 4, and I bought up to 8 properties, and I was 24 years old.
Yeah, wow. And obviously this is something that you've been doing through your personal career, but now you've obviously been helping people do the same thing and replicate that process in your working career. How did you, did you work in real estate because you had so much love for it to begin with, or how did it sort of come about?
Well, I always loved real estate, and the part of the story that I haven't mentioned yet, for those who don't know, obviously I was working for a company at the time and it went into receivership. So everything that was owed to me, which was substantial, over $750,000, was not paid, and I didn't have an income. So I lost my 8 properties and I was forced to move back into my parents. The toughest part of that story was, at the time, I had a 1-year-old son who contracted bacterial meningitis, was hospitalized for 2.5 weeks and almost died. And I had to move back into my parents. So when I started Reventon, I was actually in a position of $348,000 worth of debt. But there I was with an absolute passion that real estate was the way to go. I had a lot of lessons that I learned. Back at the time, I over leveraged and I was dependent on my income to keep coming in. And I wanted to learn how I can help people get into the property market safely and affordably by putting the right information and team in place, which is what we write about in my book, Your Path to Wealth, Brick by Brick. We've come up with a Reventon formula, which has now helped over 3,000 Australians get into the property market safely and securely, and build brick upon brick and replicate a successful process.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of statistics out there that show that a lot of people in Australia that do invest in real estate, they can never replicate the process. So they buy one property and then they get stuck. Now, your formula obviously takes into account people's borrowing capacities and ability to actually be able to borrow again. And I think that's a really important part, because so many people get the wrong advice for their first investment property and they sort of get stagnated, don't they? They can't move on and replicate the process again.
I always say the first investment property is one of the most important things you'll do, because it's the stepping stone to your second, third, and fourth. And it's like with anything, if you put a stepping stone too far away, it's unable to achieve to get to that stepping stone, or it might take you longer. And what I'm referring to is, if you over leverage and borrow too much money, if you buy in the wrong areas, if you're not getting the right rental return, the right capital growth, and now as interest rates are going up, latest rate was even as recent as yesterday, it is even more important that we get the right information, because not over leveraging and being able to have manageable debt, which is why my wheels came off when I was earlier at 24, is why I lost everything and had to rebuild. Not over leveraging is the safest way to duplicate a process. And once you build momentum and you start leveraging more and more, you start to really, really compound your wealth.
I know an analogy you used to use was it's like riding a bike. The first gear might be a little bit tough, but if you do it well, but as you start to get through the gears, it gets easier and easier. And I've always loved that.
That's very, very true. And as I said, you mentioned before people that talk about real estate. I think it's important to have a proven track record, to love and breathe what you do, but more importantly, to take your own advice. We at Reventon invest where our clients invest, our team, our families, we invest in the same areas because it's a formula that I say, which is some people go, that's a crazy statement. It's actually recession proof. In any market, in any condition, by not over leveraging and buying in the right areas, with the right capital growth, forward indicators, with the right rental returns, with good, healthy tax savings, you can duplicate that process. And I stand by that statement. As you saw me rebuild my personal portfolio over 20 in a very short period of time, using the exact methodology that I wrote about in your path to wealth.
Yeah, I've got to say, in my experience of working with you at Reventon, I mean, it's funny if I look back at when I first started, the interest rates at the time were similar to what we're in right now. So, everyone's feeling the pinch at the moment, the cost of living's going up, all those types of things. But the interest rates right now are actually on par with what they were when I first started in real estate. And, I've seen people be able to duplicate that process through tough times. And I think, the subject of today's webinar is about passive income through residential real estate. The yield is incredibly important now because we've seen so many interest rate rises, like record-making interest rate rises. So, yeah, let's have a chat about how we can actually do that for our clients. So obviously, a bit of housekeeping first. Today's lunch and learn. It's about 30 minutes worth of content that Chris is going to provide, and then we're going to have some time at the end. 10, 15 minutes worth of question time. I urge everybody use this time, ask him a million questions because it's not often Chris gets to have these webinars, and he's really is a book of knowledge. So please ask as many questions as you can at the end. Chris, you're going to take us through a couple of client case studies as well, which will talk to people about the benefit of buying in the right area. It's not just about capital growth, but also about if you buy in the right areas, how you can achieve good passive income as the years go on. Then you're going to introduce Zen Christofi, who is the Chief Operating Officer, who's got a great Reventon offer for everybody that's turned up today or watching on replay later. So I'll hand it over to you, Chris. What have you got for us today?
Well, look, I'll briefly touch on these stats. These are very well documented online, so I'm not going to talk too much to those points, although I'm extremely proud to be sharing all these with you. As Tim mentioned, I am an Amazon best-selling author. 100% of all the money for this book as well goes towards charity, to helping people, which is something that I'm super proud of. All the knowledge that I've learned over the decades of years in this industry, I've put into this book. And the purpose for it was people to be able to make smart investment decisions and to really compound their wealth. We've been fortunate enough to feature in over 60 major publications, won over 30 industry awards, only because we have one of the best teams on the planet that work relentlessly round the clock to make sure that we get great clients' results. I've been very privileged to be a Vinny's ambassador since 2019. It's something that I'm very, very proud of. Since 2018, since I started, I raised over $680,000 for St. Vincent de Paul's, which helps eradicate homelessness in this country. Last year alone, we raised $122,240. And to give you an idea of the impact that that money generates, which is even more important than the actual figure, $75 helps feed a family for a day. So we're able to help feed 1,630 families for a day. So this is a statistic that me and my team are very proud of. And obviously, we're extremely passionate about real estate. Been doing this for almost 25 years. I talk about it, I'm as passionate about it now as I was when I started. And also I run a podcast called Relentless Life on Your Terms. So we do a little bit of everything now. A bit about Reventon statistics, which I think is also very important. We're able to help people, over 3,300 people get into the property market. We've got over 245-star Google reviews. Amongst those 30 awards we've received, we just won our 6th Platinum Achiever Award for our finance, for customer service, for compliance, and also for volume. And more importantly, helped that many people get into the market. We've sold $2.78 billion worth of real estate and finance. and we have over $1 billion under management. Now, the reason I feel these statistics are very, very important, in such turbulent times, there's a lot of people out there talking about real estate, talking about finance, but you want someone that stands the test of time, that understand market conditions, that has seen GFCs, have seen, in our case, pandemics, interest rates going up. We were coming off the back of the lowest interest rate in history. So we have navigated through some of the most challenging times in real estate. And our experience extends further than 24 years because we've done a lot of research that goes back even further as well to ensure that we can predict as safely and affordably as we can what's to come ahead.
One thing that's worth noting in that $2.78 billion worth of sales, part of your formula, which you document in your book, is the Reventon formula between 450 and sort of 650 bracket. So if you think about that, that's a hell of a lot of real estate and a lot of happy customers. So it's worth noting.
It's very, very important. Obviously, the affordability is king when you look at real estate. People say location, location, location. I've coined a phrase which you've probably heard me say 100 times: affordability, affordability, affordability. If you can afford the real estate and you've got some good, strong forward indicators, you can achieve some fantastic results. I'm going to share with you a case study with one of our clients. Always makes me happy and proud reading her case study and seeing what we should be able to achieve. Can I put that over there? Now, over 8 years, this client has purchased over 5 investment properties. When they came to us, they were on a single income and they had a mortgage debt as well. So over that period of time, they've managed to buy 5 investment properties, one in their self-managed super fund as well. Obviously, you've got to speak to a licensed planner to make sure that you can do that, but the offer and the option is available to you clients. $678,000 in uplift over that period of times. So close to $750,000. But here's the best part. When the client came to us, the first thing that they wanted to do was say, I wanted to be debt-free on my own home. She's managed to pay off her own home. And that was a massive relief off her shoulders. And now she's well on her way to securing her financial freedom in retirement. So those case studies are really what always put a smile on my face.
Yeah. And Chris, I think, the key to her being able to pay down or pay off her own mortgage, that comes down to cash flow. Like if you've got a property, an investment property that's draining money out of your pocket every week, every month, there's no way you're paying off your own home, and you're certainly not paying down any investment debt. So this is a thing that we talk about quite regularly at Hotspotting, and I know at Reventon do as well, is that rental yield is incredibly important now more than ever, given that interest rates have increased so much. So if I look back at some of these properties where you purchased in 2015, purchase price of 365, if they're looking at an 80% LVR or even 90% LVR there, I've just lost you. I can't say what the figures now, but essentially the debt on those properties isn't going up. If anything, you're probably running an interest-only loan until you've paid off your owner-occupied debt. But if your debt remains like that, rent continues to go up. I don't know if you've got the figures there, Chris, but something like a property in Officer in the southeast of Melbourne is probably now renting at $550, $600 a week. So this is a really good example of ways that real estate can offer a passive income as the years go on.
100%. And researching it after that latest rate rise go up, for an average mortgage of $750,000, people are more out of pocket over $114 on an average mortgage of $750. So people that have higher debt, these things start to accumulate on the back of 2, 3, 4 rate rises. It's very, very important that you make sure you have sharp rates, you got good rents, because some people, and I heard a few people speaking yesterday, Mark Boris was talking to Tom Panos, is this the rate that's really going to break the camel's back? Is this the rate that's going to put people in a tough position? It's very, very important that you've got a good team behind you. And one of my parts in my book is ensuring you have a good team with a proven track record behind you to navigate through these challenging times.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, everything to do with real estate success comes from understanding the finance model to begin with. It's not always about the interest rate either. It's about the structure of your loans and ensuring that you're getting the best tax deduction, all those things. That's why it's so important to have a proper team around you to make sure that the property is working in your best interests.
Correct. Now, speaking of team, I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to introduce my brother, who's been in this industry almost as long as me, over 20 years. He personally, along with his business, has also helped over 2,000 people get into the property market across the country, been involved since 2003. And only a year ago, I was fortunate enough for him to come to the business and join forces now so we can actually help even more people and create an even bigger and more incredible company to provide more services. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Zen Christofi.
Welcome, Zen.
Hey, Tim, Chris.
How are you?
Good, thanks, lads. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. Looking forward to see what you've got for us.
Fantastic. So, obviously, Chris touched on the experience that I've had in the industry. I've been involved since the early 2000s, so it's something that I've also lived and breathed. To give you a bit of an update in relation to when I joined the Reventon team, obviously a fantastic management team here as well, and to further advance my learnings in the industry, I thought it was a great step, and obviously to combine forces with my brother's organisation and previous organisations that I've run. We had done some collective business over the years, but really just sitting down together and making sure that we're firing on all cylinders here at Reventon has been a strong focus of mine. And so I've worked as the COO this year, but came into the organisation to really talk about strategic partnerships with different builders and developers, and also help out with the management staff as well. So I've been really fortunate to be able to work with a great team alongside with my brother. And also wanted to, I suppose, just touch on a case study of some individuals that I've helped as well, which I think is hugely important. And when we talk about case studies and we talk about people's building wealth towards retirement, I think what's important to note is there's a number of different factors that you've got to take into consideration when building wealth, and sitting down and sort of mapping out that process is really important, and doing it with the right team behind you allows you to sort of put out the blueprint to say, okay, well, we've got 10, 15, 20 years left in the workforce. This is what we're hoping to achieve over that period of time. And this is what we want our exit strategy to look like. And just having those candid conversations with clients just allows us to really set the blueprint and really hone in on their goals and their focuses. And that's something that I've been doing for over 20 years. And I know the guys here at Reventon have been doing that since 2005 as well. So
it's probably worth noting that, for people who think Reventon helps people buy real estate, there's a lot of other departments that you have there, which a lot of other businesses don't. So accounting firm, property management, mortgage broking, financial planning. So having all of that under one roof means that people can get the right tax advice on which entity to set it up with, and all these types of things that can be very expensive if you don't get it right from the beginning.
Well, this was part of the reason, though, for years I was actually trying to get Zen across to help me here, because obviously having so many different arms, you need so much more experience. You need so many different people running each department. So it's actually been a massive benefit to the business, and more importantly to our clients, to bring someone with almost 25 years experience to the business that's sold so many pieces of real estate and has done so much in finance as well. So going back to what we said, we wrote about it, we spoke about it in the book. Having the right team is so important. And to build a fully integrated financial services company, I can definitely assure you that I can't do that by myself. Zen can't do that by himself. We need a group of people like-minded to come together to give our clients the best possible outcome to maximize their efficiencies.
And I think in the 18 years of business, Chris has been able to attract some fantastic people that were able to add to that, and that's why we sit here today with a sort of a one-stop shop solution where we can look at accounting, we can look at investments, obviously brokering, real estate, financial planning, the whole gamut, and really sort of work towards a plan that is going to be beneficial for our clients, and something that is obviously going to be generational wealth going forward as well. So
the case study, funny enough, Zen, tell us about it. And it's a brother and sister.
It's a fantastic story of brother and sister that I met, I think back in 2010. That brother and sister, first-time investors, have purchased 5 properties in total from my organisation. And to date, total uplift on those properties is over $1 million, approximately $1 million. But again, as I was speaking previously and talking about that, it's not just the uplift that you're looking for. Obviously, capital growth is very important, but understanding someone's financial situation, understanding their time remaining in the workforce is also something that we really take into consideration. And talking to this brother and sister, obviously about their taxable income and the substantial amount of tax that they were giving away on an annual basis was something that they wanted to have a strong focus on. And I'm happy to say that since the time that we've met these clients, this brother and sister combination, we've been able to save them approximately $450,000 in income tax. And if I can quote the great, Kerry Packer, why would I give you more money than I would give the government more money than they would need to? Well, those
not
guys
minimizing, you should get your head read. Yeah.
And these guys are not doing such a great job with it anyway. So putting it back into the client's hands, giving them an opportunity to continually build wealth, not only for themselves, but for generations moving forward, is something that me personally, I had a strong focus on. And as I said previously, understanding the workings of Reventon and doing some transactions with them over that period of time, I knew that our goals aligned in that sense as well, which was great.
So I guess touching base on that, so we talk about experience, joining forces and bringing together some amazing people. We're very, very proud to boast, and if anyone knows any other combination that's been in this industry for 50 years and have sold over 5,000 pieces of real estate, I'd definitely be interested. Nationwide, we've generated over $4 billion worth of sales between the organizations, which is now we're one. And something that we're very proud of, we've raised now over $2 million for our community in charities. And now we're including in that, we're about to build, we've paid off a house in full in Geelong in Mountainede, which we're going to be auctioning off in a year for $1 million. So all the work that we're doing is definitely very purposeful when it comes to our community. And it's something that's very, very important to us. And collectively to have over 300 5-star Google reviews is something that we're very, very proud of.
And so you should be. Now, in relation to market at the moment, I know we've got some questions coming in, which we'll get to shortly, but I've got a couple of questions in relation to where you're focusing a lot of your attention at the moment, Zen. I know you've been a bit bullish on WA in the past. Is that still the case?
At the moment, the majority of the sales coming out of the organisation are in that WA space. We're also doing a lot of work in South Australia and regional Queensland. But we've found with our research at the end of last year and sort of moving into this year when we were sort of really hit the ground running, that again, you speak about rental returns. We're talking about a 20% uplift in rental returns. And in this market, with interest rates rising, as we've had in the last 12 months, rental return really makes a big difference in the whole scheme of things. So to be able to get that sort of 20% uplift is something that we've seen more commonly in WA than some of the other states in Australia. So that is definitely taken into consideration, and a large volume of sales have gone on here at Reventon in Western Australia. And obviously a number of property experts are speaking about Western Australia's really strong growth, the affordability still in the market, and prompting us to understand that there's probably going to be a good 2-3 years of some good short-term growth in that market. And looking at dwellings going up and listening to, I suppose, a lot of different property experts in the industry, WA is really falling behind in that sense. So new dwellings being approved, it's going to put continued pressure on rents moving upwards. So if we've seen a 20% rise over the course of the last 12 months, and they just can't keep up with the supply, we would foresee that those figures shouldn't move down at a drastic rate, which sometimes you might see a 20% uplift over the course of the year, and then in the next year see a dramatic drop.
Like a small correction.
When there's not as many dwellings being produced, then you'll find that that uplift continues at a pretty steady rate.
Because there's a lot of indicators that are just beyond that. So the supply and demand so strong. It's not like back in the day when it was mining, it was one key thing that was driving that. So the forward indicators are strong, but not only that, even if it does stabilize or come down a little bit because of so many other factors like the supply and demand, it's not going to vary much.
And I think internal migration as well is a factor that we need to take into consideration. So with internal migration, in the past 24 months, post-COVID, there was a lot of internal migration up to Queensland. But now some other states like WA are seeing a lot of internal migration there, as well as obviously a lot of external migration coming into the state as well.
Chris has used the word a few times today, affordability is key. And I think as we start to see interest rates increasing and the price of living going up, people are looking for areas where they can get into either the housing market or even rent into a more affordable area so that they have better cash flow.
Well, look, obviously we want to definitely stick to our 30-minute time. We don't want to hold people up too much. We can talk about this for hours, Tim. We can talk days and days on end when it comes to real estate, when it comes to finance and things like that. What I do want to say is I do want to show a short clip of what our most important people say about our organization, which is our clients. And then we'd like to make a special offer to the people that are listening to this and would like to talk to you. So
Everybody's friendly, professional, and it's like a second home for me.
That made life so much easier for us where we didn't have to worry about anything.
We don't know the property market as well. I'd rather, do it right with the help of Reventon than doing a poor job.
The most important aspect for me is to be able to have someone that I trust. That was the reason I invested with Reventon.
They've helped all the way through and they've been open. They're not trying to push everything on us.
It gives me a lot of happiness, to be honest. It makes me feel like I've got more control over what I'm doing.
I would definitely recommend Reventon to anyone that I come across. This is a very professional company that will help you to grow your wealth and to plan for your future.
Also having the peace of mind that Reventon does everything for me.
It's nice to see them and know that they're actually buying properties as well. So it's not just them trying to push properties onto us.
I'm really excited. I'm very happy to see it. I wouldn't hesitate moving in here myself.
The experience has been nothing but positive, and the good thing is that when I say that I need to be contacted or follow up, they always do that, which is important for me.
From start to finish, it was a set process. If you had a question, if the person you spoke to didn't know it, they'll get the answer for you.
It's not just a sale and then they forget about me. The after sale service has been wonderful. They always keep me updated. That's great.
I'm very grateful for everything that Reventon has done for me, and I think I certainly can say a lot of good things about it because the experience is exceptional.
And it's a no-brainer for me.
I don't do this sort of stuff often, preach about other businesses and that. This is something that I thought I need to get out and say, this is a good formula, this works. If you can do it, get out there, give Reventon a call, get them to help you like they've helped us.
So, Tim, you might have seen some familiar faces in that video in your time that you were here at Reventon.
Yep.
Very good. Look, as I mentioned at the start of the call, obviously I've seen, what the Reventon formula can do for clients for a very long time. And I do recommend anybody to reach out. Anybody who thinks that they would like assistance, whether it's for, mortgage broking, property investment advice, financial planning, they really are the one-stop shop. And I do highly recommend them. Now we've got, sorry, did you want to jump on? Do you want to do this?
No, that's it. I would like to, Yep, I'd like to. Do you want to cover the questions or would you like me to go over the offer first? What would you like to do? Obviously, keep the questions coming. We'll get to as many as we can, but we'll also email everyone the responses as well. So keep them coming. Very important I get this special offer out to everyone. First, I'd like to say thank you for taking your 30 minutes of your day to listen to myself, Zen, and Tim. Always love talking about real estate. As a thank you, everyone get a digital copy of my book, Your Path to Wealth Brick by Brick, as we mentioned. And for those of you who are willing to take action for your financial future, would like to invite you on a 30-minute presentation. Can be live if you're in Victoria, or on Zoom is where 90% of our appointments are conducted with either Zen or his team. You will get a free no obligation presentation, which will go over exactly a strategy on how you can save tax, pay off your mortgage, build wealth, and put yourself in a better financial position. And we're also going to throw in a free real estate property report in a state which you of your choice, valued at over $500. So for the first 10 people that want to take up that offer, Zen himself will personally see them. If more than 10 come on, obviously it was either Zen or his team. So, yeah.
Very good. Okay, well, we'll keep that on screen there. So if anybody wants to take up the offer from the team at Reventon, you have got the QR code there. Otherwise, you can also contact Zen on the details on screen. We'll start with the first questions from Sally. It's a question for you, Chris. If you had to pick one lesson that you learned from your property investment journey, what would you say is the most important thing? That's a great question.
It's a very, very good question, actually. Speak to the right people. Don't over leverage. Making sure that you're not over leveraging and you've got the right safety nets in place to duplicate a process. So, yeah.
So, layman terms, when you say don't over leverage, don't take on too much debt.
Don't borrow too much money. If your borrowing capacity is 800,000, you can go to the bank, borrow less, pay more than your minimum where possible, and build your equity faster. Because the more equity you have, the safer it is for you to duplicate a process. The last chapter is brick on brick. The first important part is not over leveraging. Don't overextend yourself, especially in a market like this where the rates are going up and there's uncertainty in the marketplace and inflation's high.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific answer. I think one thing that you talked about for a lot, Chris, is that you can buy into an area, and you might buy into an area that's more likely than others to grow. But if that's all that you're relying on, equity gain can only be through the property going upwards in value. But if you're able to pay down debt because you have good cash flow, you can pay down the mortgage at the same time, and your equity gain is much faster.
Spot on. Plus good rental cash flow and tax savings. 100%. Plus good tax savings and good cash flow. So the three components you invest for is capital growth, tax savings, and cash flow. We target all three.
Good. I had another question from Mehdi, which is for Chris and Zed. What areas are you currently focusing on for better cash flow properties?
Zen.
I'll take that one, Chris. In relation to rental returns, probably the best yields that we're seeing these days is in WA. We are doing suburbs north and south of the river, so anywhere from a 20 to 35 kilometre proximity to Perth CBD. We are doing a bit of business in regional Victoria, again, where we have strong yields, up to 6% yields in, regional Queensland. And we also have a strong focus in SA, around about 20 minutes north of the CBD in South Australia as well.
So you mentioned the tricky part, the 450 to 650, now it's kind of 700 mark. Finding that location that offers those 3 points we just mentioned, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, talking about, cash flow, just to answer Mehdi's question from a hotspotting perspective, we just recently completed an update of one of our reports, which is called the top 10 positive cash flow locations. And what's interesting is we update these reports every 4 months. And, it's very rare in my time in real estate that I've seen rental growth outperform capital growth. If you think back, Chris, back in 2015, when we first started selling in Geelong, the capital growth just took off, right? And we've got properties that you paid 350, 400,000 that are now worth 550, 600. But just because the growth of the property has gone up so significantly, you can't pass on the same percentage of growth onto your tenants. They're not going to. But what we've seen in the last sort of 3-4 months around Australia is that the rental growth has been outperforming capital growth in a lot of locations, which is exciting if you're buying in the right areas.
100%.
I think that really underpins the supply chain.
Yeah.
So when the supply chain is so
the biggest
large,
word to affect real estate nationwide at the moment is supply. We have such a lack of supply. People ask me all the time, what's going to happen with real estate? And I say, look, it's the great thing about real estate as an investment is it's an absolute necessity. Housing is something we all require. And we simply don't have enough of them. And you're adding to Australia's population with, overseas migration, population growth is going through the roof in the capital cities, and it's got to go somewhere. So we've got an enormous problem with housing here, and we don't have the solutions to fix it quick enough.
Definitely. Now, Tim, are we going to keep taking questions? We're happy to, obviously, but we've gone a little bit over.
No, we've got a 30-minute plus question, so we've still got a couple of minutes if you've got time.
Let's keep going. Yep.
That's fine. Yi Jen has asked a question. What would be your recommendation on the investor who already used all of their borrowing capacity on their residential property? Okay, so I think if I understand the question correctly, you bought your own owner-occupier home and you no longer can borrow for an investment. Hopefully that's
Yep. And if that's the case, I think it comes down to making an appointment, because there's no one size fits all when it comes to investing or strategy. So if you're over leveraged, where have you lived? What are you looking at? What's your investment strategy? Should you potentially look at selling that and buying a few investments, becoming an investor? Very, very hard to answer that question without asking 3-4 more questions. Superannuation. There's so many more options, but the best thing is book a consultation, again, a free no obligation consultation, because that question needs to be unwrapped so much more to give you some better information, because there might be options available to you. What are those options? Where should you look? What should you consider? How much longer do you have in the workforce? What's your net disposable income? There's so many more questions that we need to actually answer to be able to give you great information. So I think it all starts with a strategy session where you can get that information. Now, fortunately, at Reventon, you're not going to pay anything to get that information, and would love to speak to you on a Zoom appointment. We can get one of Zen or his team to actually sit down and unwrap that question further.
Yeah, very good. The next question is an anonymous one, but it says, what is the minimum required to get into the property market?
Zen, John.
I think I'll take that one. Again, that's a really sort of open-ended question. So someone can either use savings to get into the property market, they can use superannuation to get into the property market, or they can use equity to get into the property market. So again, as Chris was saying previously, sort of unwrapping that question and sitting down and going through your individual circumstances. A 30-minute appointment, no obligation. Let's sit down, have a chat, and see what we can come up with.
As an average rule of thumb, because obviously 10% plus setup costs, but then you'll pay lender's mortgage insurance. Again, we need to unwrap that so much more. So if you're buying a $500,000 property, traditionally someone will put down 10%, which represents $50,000 plus setup costs. That might include stamp duties, solicitor fees, banks, depending what they may be. Some people put 20%, but you can draw that money from your equity, from a deposit. Average rule of thumb, 10-20% plus setup costs of the value of that property.
Probably worth noting now as well. And I know the team at Reventon have got an incredible finance department. And I must say, I've seen over the last few years an enormous take up in some of the guarantor-based loans as well, where you can get into the property market, no money down, where if you have a parent or somebody who can be a guarantor on the deposit, where you don't actually pay any lender's mortgage insurance, they're not liable for the entire loan, but are liable only for the deposit amount. So I would recommend anybody looking into those loans, because they're an incredible opportunity, and it means that you maybe don't have to use any cash at all to get into the.
I will say one thing, please, to everybody that just heard what Tim said and what we said, please go to licensed experts that have done this over and over again. Getting the right advice is so, so, so important. So making sure the people that you're speaking to are not your neighbor that's never bought real estate, your uncle that believes debt's not a good idea. Please speak to licensed, qualified experts that can give you the right information.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. We've got a question from Patrick, which is, what yield are you typically looking for? So I suppose they're talking gross yield. What sort of percentage are you usually looking for, Zen?
Generally 5 to 7%. So if we're around about that mark, knowing that interest rates are around that mark as well, take tax savings into consideration, that keeps your holding costs quite low. So that 5 to 7% yield is what we're shooting for.
And then we've got one from John K, which is, are you still recommending Victoria as a good investment option? You've sort of touched on a couple of locations already, but is Victoria still on the radar?
A lot of people, look, we do sell Victoria, and a lot of people are emotional buyers that want to buy where they live, and it's important for us to give them the knowledge, because we don't want our clients we don't sell to our clients, they buy off us through giving them the information. But as you said, Tim, what we were selling for 400 was renting for 420 in Geelong. Now that property's worth 600-700, but the rent's only gone to 470. So these are important factors. As the market shifted up so well, because we bought in such good areas due to greenfield and good forward indicators, the rent has not been able to creep up. So depending on your individual circumstance of where you buy, do we sell Victoria? Yes, we do. But predominantly, the areas that Zen mentioned, majority of our sales will be going towards South Australia, Southeast Queensland area, plus WA. So you do have the added benefit of we sell nationwide, and we look at the property clock and the forward indicators. So 100%, you have some people are emotional or want to buy Victoria, and we're not saying Victoria is not a good investment, by the way. What we are saying, it's behind in certain other categories. But that's up to the client to decide.
And again, they're predicting a good growth in Victoria. So if someone's really chasing growth, they may want to consider that. Just knowing that
the holding costs are higher though because of the loans and stuff.
That's
too.
correct. So there's a number of different things to, I suppose, unwrap when it comes to where to buy, and that's the reason why, as Chris was saying before, getting the right advice from people that have been in the industry for a long time, live and breathe the things that most people want to find out about when it comes to real estate. That's I suppose the most important thing. First step going forward.
Holding costs are higher, rents are lower. But is it a good investment? Can you still make money? Definitely.
Well, people are obviously enjoying having the two of you on here with these insights, because we've still got some more questions. I know we're just over time. Let me ask one more question. It is anonymous again, but it says, I have $400,000 in cash. What should I do in terms of getting into the property market? It's another one that probably needs to deep dive with a couple more questions. But if you had 400K today, where are you putting your money?
Great question. The question for me now is, how many would I buy? Now, that depends on your taxable income. It depends on your risk tolerance, because if you're a first-time investor, your risk tolerance might not be as high. So you've got to look at a couple factors. What's your borrowing capacity? Because the deposit's one element. The second element is your DSR, your debt to service ratio. What can your income look at servicing borrowing? So 400 is a great deposit, and that satisfies the loan to value ratio where you can use a deposit. But how much can you borrow? For me, am I buying 2 or 3 properties is probably the question. And another thing, I've been talking about this a lot lately. Instead of buying one property at $1 million or 1.3, buying 2 properties at $500,000 means your strategy is more nimble. You've got 2 bite-sized investments in different states, maybe working at different rates, which can offer you so many advantages. You're not buying one asset. I was speaking to a potential client yesterday. They had a $4 million asset with a $2 million debt. They go, Chris, what should I do? I said, well, I've got to obviously talk about that a bit more in detail. But if that was me, I'd get my $2 million, I'd rent a property at a cheaper rate, and I'd buy 5, 6 properties in 2, 3 different states, because it diversifies my portfolio and it allows me to be nimble. Same answer here. You need to look at, where would I buy? How many would I buy? Book an appointment. Would love to speak to you and really put some more context around that question.
An example of a client like that came and saw us probably about 4 weeks ago, Tim, was speaking to other organisations, and obviously here at Reventon, we differ from a number of organisations that actually work within the industry. So our buyers advocates not only look at new properties, but they also look at existing properties. And a person in that situation in the last 4 months have been able to acquire 3 properties, so a couple existing properties, and now looking at a new purchase. So they wanted speed to the market. So knowing that it's an existing property, we're still able to get some good depreciations on those properties as well, was something that I suppose it was a point of difference for our organisation, and something that we've been on the front foot with. And again, looking at that, they've put about $1.5 million into the market over the course of the last 4 months since dealing with them, and got over $1,700 in rental returns on those properties, with one of them obviously going into construction at the moment. But 2 existing properties, again, with the dealings that we have with different agents across the country and things like that as well. So off-market opportunities and things like that. But again, really looking at their appetite for risk. They were collectively, they wanted to build on their portfolio at a faster rate. So knowing their situation allowed us to to do a deep dive and say, okay, well, if we want to build this portfolio over the course of the next 2 to 3 years and we want to get a jump start on things, we're probably going to need to look at something that is existing. And if we can find something that's existing, that's still going to give us a good amount of depreciation, which will mean that our holding costs are down as well, but also a good rental yield. That's something that's going to be a win-win situation for the client. So they purchased 3 properties in 3 different states. So one in Queensland, existing piece. They purchased an existing piece in WA as well, which both of those pieces offered a strong yield. So close to 6-7% on those 2 properties. And now looking at a new build in SA as well. So really diversifying their portfolio and looking back at that and saying, okay, well, over the course of the next 12 months, that property's constructed, they have the potential of getting themselves back between $25,000 to $35,000 in taxable income from those 3 purchases, which is obviously a huge benefit for those clients coming
through. Putting it straight back into their mortgage. It's amazing result.
And what a good thing to diversify across many states. So being the fact that we've got amazing relationships with builders and we do extensive research, we can actually open these opportunities up to our clients. So we're not just selling in one state with one particular product. We're really understanding through that 30-minute consultation exactly the strategy that will best suit the client. It might be local, interstate, it might be a mirror of both of these options, but really giving them the best opportunity for them to build their wealth through buying in the right strategic locations.
And I think the key to that, from what I'm hearing, though, it really is that you need to analyze every individual's personal circumstances and goals to be able to recommend the correct strategy for them, because what's right for one person could be wrong for somebody else. So I urge anybody that's visiting or watching this today or watching the replay, do take up the team at Reventon to have a free discovery meeting. You'll also get a copy of Chris's book, and the first 10 will also get a $500 property report. So might be doing us at Hotspotting out of a bit of business there, but we'll let that one slide.
No, to clarify, everyone will get a copy of that report. The first 10 will get a personal appointment with Zen as well. So yeah, but thank you. We've always worked well together. We love the team at Hotspotting.
Thank you. Well, look, there was a couple other questions we didn't quite get to, and a couple of them were anonymous, so I won't be able to, I can pass on the question, but I won't have your contact details for the team to get back to you. So for those that have asked anonymous questions that would like the answers, obviously feel free to reach out to zen@reventon.com.au, and I'm sure the team there will help you. Thanks a lot, boys. Great to see you.
Thank you for your time today, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Good on your team. Thanks.
Have a good one.